Hello and welcome to the Dowagers. And it's episode 9, and I am Sharon Smith, and I am joined with...
Hi, everybody. This is Cynthia and Sharon. I'm so happy to have you guys with us today. So, Sharon, we just came back from a huge, massive weekend, not even this last weekend, but 2 weekends ago. I went from one big weekend into another one. But we were with a lot of other widows, and we had an opportunity to share about our Dowagers podcast.
We did.
And you and I have such great conversations. We're sitting in the airport, and we have a conversation. Actually, the conversation kind of was all weekend long with everybody we were with, but the title of it kind of came, I think, was in the airport.
Yeah, agreed. It did.
Mm-hmm. It might have even come that night we were having great Mexican food in San Antonio at Rosario.
That was a great place.
It was. So go ahead and share with everybody the title of today's episode.
Okay, so our episode today is Just Be. And it sounds so simple, right? Just be. We had a really lengthy conversation about, what does that mean? And I think it came about because of this weekend, or that weekend, I should say. Like you said, we were with hundreds of widows and a few widowers, and we got to hear a lot of stories and got to see a lot of emotions that people were having. And boy, it was all over the place, from just still complete sadness to some that are actually finding some joy. But I think when it came down to it, we just all need to not focus so much on like everything that's going around us. It's just like get within ourselves and just be. I mean,
I think another word that we could use from some of the people that we heard about this weekend would be lost. They still feel very lost now that their spouse is gone. And I think that, sadness, feeling lost, beginning to find joy. I even think some people can still be scrambling, because when you lose a spouse when it's not expected, like what we've been through, I think what ends up happening is you end up with all of those feelings at some point in time. I just think sometimes we struggle to process those feelings. And sometimes because we're looking for an answer or looking for the pain to go away, we begin grasping for other things or looking to other people and do what they do just because we don't know what to do.
Right.
We can't just be.
Yeah. And well, I think sometimes when you just exactly what you just said, sometimes when we don't know what to do, we look at somebody else and we're like, oh, that's what they're doing. Okay, well, that's what I need to do too.
Right.
And that's not you.
And it sometimes just falls flat on its face.
Absolutely.
I mean, I've got a great example. I don't know if you were told this, but I had heard before too, that a lot of people say when you lose your spouse, don't make any big decisions within the first year.
Yes, I was told that as well.
Well, for some people, it's not even feasible. Some people don't even have that choice. I didn't have that choice.
That is correct.
I would have liked to make it so that I didn't have to make any large decisions that first year, but it wasn't possible. And so in the sense of that, I did not get my just be time until almost a year in. And I think that talking about just be, I think sometimes requires a slowing down And sometimes the situations that we are placed in when we become widows don't allow us to get to that situation. I believe we can get there, or I think we have to be intentional. And that's really what I ended up having to do, because I was literally lost Eric, and 3 weeks later I'm hitting the ground running, just trying to survive. And I felt like, how they always talk about, you look at a duck, he's all smooth on top of the water, but underneath his feet are just going like this, really fast.
Mm,
And that's how I
that's
felt inside.
that's a really good analogy. Yes.
And on the outside, I might have looked like I knew what I was doing, but on the inside, I did not know what I was doing. And
Well,
it caused
yeah, and I think
stress.
people say that as far as like on the outside, what it's looked like. You know what? We we're just trying to breathe. So it nothing more, and it's like you're just kind of going through the motions, right? So I understand what you're saying with that, so on the outside it looks like, oh, good, you're calm. Well, not always calm, but sometimes you're putting on that face that you're calm, but on the inside, like you said, you're like those little feet are just a going. Yeah,
And,
I get that.
and how would you define for your life how Just Be came about?
Well, okay, so for me, I I didn't make any big decisions for quite some time, because I just had always known that, and I don't think I had the wherewithal, and I wasn't forced into it.
Yeah.
Some people are forced into it, and I understand that. So for me, to just be, I think the first thing that I did was talk about reaching out to, or seeing what other people were doing. I started making a list, of all the people that I have known that lost their spouse, male and female, friends of mine. The first thing is, I couldn't believe I knew so many people.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah.
Because it didn't, as much as I had sympathy for them or empathy for them, it didn't affect my life directly. Okay. So, but I started reaching out to the people then after I started, making this list, and I started reaching out to them. So people that had lost their spouse for some time. And so I, like, okay, I call this one and say, okay, how did you do it? What did you do? And that's pretty much the question that I asked, probably 10 people. What did you do? How did you get through this? How are you surviving? How are you breathing? And they all told me the same thing. Just one day at a time.
Yeah. Yes.
There's no magic potion. There's no easy way about this. You got to go right on through it, but you have to take it every single day of the time and just work yourself slowly through this. So I started reading books. That was one of the things that I did. I started reading books that were written by widows. And, this is something we can put on our website, is some of these books that helped us. And one was From One Widow to Another, which is exactly what you and I are doing. And it was just that, having that conversation. But I was reading it and I'm like, okay, well, that made sense. That made sense. And another one that I read was Grieving with Hope. I thought that one helped me so much, because I think that's what we need to do. We need to grieve with hope.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We have to have hope. We cannot not have hope.
No.
I know for me, because I had so much loss at one time, losing 2 family members and my own household, just basically turning upside down. I know for me, it came down to, I was forced to make decisions. So the whole just be in the peaceful sense of the word of just sit back, don't make those, I didn't have a choice. But that doesn't mean that I wasn't still just being. Because I think what just be requires is it requires a constant relationship with the Lord. Because when you go through tragic loss, if you don't have that constant relationship with the Lord in that moment, that is your just be. When the world is swirling around you and you have to make decisions and you're forced to, sometimes your just be is even just listening and saying, okay, I'm forced to make this decision. Help me make the best decision, Lord, that I can make today. And like you just said, one day at a time. Sometimes it's very hard when you are in a chaotic and big situation. It's hard to think, okay, I'm just going to live today and the moment. When you know tomorrow you're going to wake up and that person's still gone and you're still going to have to make decisions the next day. I think that's the hard part of just being. And so that's why we look to other people, or we can look to things and activities and things like that to distract us from it. But at some point in time, you are going to have to face slowing down and just being.
Yeah. And I think, with you saying that, one of the things that I did is I would just meditate. And I'll honestly tell you that there was one day that I was so like, whew, I don't know if I'm going to make it till tomorrow. And I laid on the couch just all day from morning until night. And I meditated. I listened to, meditation, music, meditation, guided, that was spiritual, and I did it the whole day. I'm
Wow.
like, I couldn't, like just a lump of whatever sitting there, but it was so helpful for me, and I think, other than, that day, but I did do meditation music a lot, even at night trying to sleep. But, I listened to very calming music. I couldn't. Well, first of all, I couldn't do any social media because I didn't want to see what everybody else
So
was
true.
doing. And I couldn't do
being. Let me tell you.
And quite honestly, the world could have blown up.
Yeah.
And I would not have known it.
Yeah.
And I didn't care because I couldn't put any of that into my world right now because it didn't matter to me, quite honestly.
Yeah.
So I just didn't do any news or anything like that. I just didn't want to hear about the outside world. I just was worried about my world. And I journaled, and I think journaling helped me so much. And I still do that. And I don't know that I will ever stop now. And so journaling and walking. Oh, dear God. This girl, I had to get a lot of new tennis shoes because I walk a lot. I would just go, and it would be miles and miles. And I would have music on, something to help me calm, my spiritual music, that helped me a lot. I wonder how many miles I walked in that first time, because it was a lot,
And and that is where you can sometimes hear God the best, is when you are walking and when you have your worship music on, when you're sometimes even just pushing play on your Bible app and just letting it read to you while you're doing nothing, if that's all you can do. Because I know for me, just to give a flip side of what happens to you physically if you can't just, slow down a little bit, is, I ended up with shingles because of the stress of having to go into making all these decisions and just surviving and just trying to figure out, how am I going to do this financially? How am I going to, keep my house? How am I going to survive? And having to make tons and tons and tons and tons of decisions, and also stepping into a directorship of a school that I knew I had to do to help me financially. When I did all those decisions, I didn't realize how much it affected me physically. And like, I go back to the duck. On the outside, I look like, yep, I'm doing it. I got this. I can do this. And yet
Yep.
it came back to bite me later.
Mhm.
And that's, part of it is realizing that at some point you are going to have to slow down to just be during all of this, or your body will force you to slow down to
Yeah.
just be.
Yeah. I mean, I know for me, you always hear the story where, and I was a hairdresser for 38 years, right? And so, many times, people would say this, how you've heard, well, when something really tragic happens to you, your hair turns white. Yeah. Well, that happened. That happened. And I'm like, wow, I couldn't believe it. It was like overnight. I was like, what just happened? And, weight loss. I mean, it just, whoosh. I mean, I was like, oh my God.
Because I couldn't walk because I was recovering. I gained weight. And, thinking,
Yeah.
I
Well,
love how you and I have both of these for when people listen. For those of you that are listening to this, know and understand that just be can look different for every single person. But just be means doing what God wants you to do and not what others necessarily want you to do. But also, just be can also mean not striving. See, I think that I had done that. I had been striving a lot. Now, was I forced to strive? Yeah, I probably was. But I also had to learn to stop and hear God's voice in it, or just ask him, God, I'm not hearing you right now. So can you please just, give me the right answer or show me the right way, or I'm going to make this decision. You're just going to have to bless it.
Yeah, right.
And I know some people might go, oh my word, we should never make a decision and ask God to bless it. Well, people, when you've been through what Sharon and I have been through, sometimes that's your decision. And so
Yep.
God has taught me a big thing about decision making through this whole thing. And that'll be a podcast in itself. But it is part of the just be.
It is.
Learning to be satisfied in where you are, in the current season of your life that you're in. Life is seasons coming and going.
Oh,
I mean, I'm looking,
boy, I would have
I'm looking
never
at a
believed
fall
that.
blanket behind me. I'm thinking, good grief, it's 90 degrees here in Florida, and I've got a fall blanket on the back of my chair. Go figure.
Right.
It's crazy.
Well, and what you just said about seasons. I never. I came from Wisconsin. Seasons: fall, winter, spring, summer. That was a season. I never thought of my life as going through seasons.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what it was. And so for me, one of the this might be something that might help somebody, because another widower had told me this, and I thought, oh, that's a pretty good idea. That when I would record myself, I would get my phone out, and I clearly remember being at the beach on one of my walks, and it was an overcast day, and I recorded myself at my voice, but I had the camera facing the water and the sky, and I said, this is what grief looks like. And it was not a pretty day.
Oh, wow.
And I think I'm going to put that on our website, because I think it's pretty powerful. Just what grief felt like. Just what does it
Wow.
feel?
I love that.
Look like? Yeah. So he said he would do that. He said he would record himself, and I thought, well, that's an amazing idea.
I love that.
Because now it's like a verbal journal, right? And I've gone back to listen to it, and I thought, wow, that's pretty powerful. So I've done that a number of times, but I put it on a YouTube. So that's that's something. But the seasons, coming back to that, one of the things, and I think I can't remember exactly what the percentage is, but it's a pretty high percentage. How many people leave their church after this happens?
Oh, yeah.
And that's exactly what happened to me. And it wasn't because somebody did anything or didn't do anything. It was just a different season in my life, and it just didn't fit for me right then.
Yeah.
went to and they started going to a different church. And what I found was they had a women's ministry that just spoke to me.
Mm.
And that was very helpful for me. So,
That's part of, finding people that you can just be with. Sometimes in that.
yes.
I also have a verse I wanted to read here, Ephesians 4:1-6. Therefore, I, a prisoner for serving the Lord, beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. Always be humble and gentle. Be patient with each other, make an allowance for each other's faults because of your love. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit, binding yourselves together with peace. For there is one body and one Spirit, just as you have been called to one glorious hope for the future. There is one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all, in all, and living through all. And it's so funny because just recently I read this verse completely different than I always had. And it says, therefore, I beg you to lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called. And that goes back to the seasons. Right now, we have been called in a different season. We are now called dowagers. We are now widows of the king. And therefore, we are now to walk differently in this calling than we did as our calling as wives.
And that is so true.
And so because of that, the word then tells us to be humble and gentle, to be patient with each other. Isn't that just being? Learn. And I think on the flip side of that, be patient with yourself.
Yes, yes, yes. I was just going to say that. Just be patient with yourself.
And right there, you said it. You said, just be patient with yourself. There it is. I mean, that is probably so key. Just be is being patient with yourself. And then, I just love this verse because it tells us how we're supposed to be. Make every effort to keep yourselves united in the Spirit. That means that when we are going through things like that, we better keep our heart right with the Lord. We better stay united with Him, especially when we're in a new calling. He was a prisoner at this point. When he wrote this, he was in jail. And his state had changed. So then he was going to be united in the Spirit with whatever God had called him to. And he was still going to just learn to be humble, just be gentle, just be patient, remembering just be at peace. We could really use that phrase that you so eloquently quoted in San Antonio, just be, and then tack on those little things at the end. What do I need today?
Yes. Yes.
In this moment in time, in this state that I've been called in, what do I need to just be for today? And, ask God, maybe He'll give you the word that you need for that day as a dowager. I know that has helped me. Just what do I need today, God? Only today.
Yeah. And I can remember, in the morning sitting out in my backyard, looking at the water and the sky and just saying, God, I just want to be. I just want to be. And I think for me that once I realized that, that I didn't have to worry about what was I going to do? What about tomorrow? What about next week? Just, I want to be right now. Just right now, I want to be, and I want to be with you. And I can say for myself that I found my faith in a much, much deeper way.
Oh, yeah.
Much deeper way. And it's a year, a little over a year and a half for me now. And, I still have to be. And I think I don't know if I talked about it with you on when we were in San Antonio or if it was something that I talked to myself about when I got back. But I realized where I am right now, that God and He's my best friend.
Yes.
My best
No,
friend.
you didn't share that with me. That's so good.
Because I can count on him
Yeah.
24/7, 365.
Yep.
I don't have to think, oh, geez, it's Saturday night at 3 o'clock in the morning. I can't call. So who could I call? I don't have to think like that.
Right.
Because God's right here with me and he's holding me and he knows. So that's very peaceful for me.
Well, you know,
Very
and to be
peaceful.
honest with you, that is just being with God.
Yep.
He will give you the answers you need. He
Oh,
will
absolutely.
lead and direct your life. You have to learn to just be close to him.
Yep.
And he will. He has a special place in his heart for widows. If you look at the word, it's very evident through the whole Bible that he has a special place in his heart for what we like to call ourselves dowagers, because we are widows of him. We're widows of the King. And it sounds so much better than a widow.
It does. I don't like that word. I swore
Be a
I'm never going
widow.
to use
I
it.
don't like to just be a widow, but to be a dowager. I just be a dowager.
It's so much more
It
elegant.
does. It does. It makes me feel like I'm still worth something here.
It does.
You know, you said something that, you know, you left your church and you said it wasn't because anybody did anything, it was because life changed for you. You received a different calling. Not one that you wanted, but that's where we're at right now. But when you said that, you know, there are people who do drop the ball in churches. And if that's you, if you feel like your church dropped the ball on you, don't blame that on God. That's not God. Those are man and people. Find a church that will wrap their arms around you, that will love on you. Or like Sharon did, you know, you find that women's group. You find those people that will really, you know, speak to you and speak to your hurting heart and allow you to just be in this moment and in this season of life.
Yeah. Oh, goodness. Yeah. I just, that was so powerful for me. And I even went to a retreat with the church, the new church, and it was a women's retreat, which I had never done in my life ever. Wow, that was the most powerful thing. But I will tell you, I didn't know anybody there except for one or two people maybe. And as we were introducing ourselves and saying a little bit about something, there were 5, not including me, widows there.
Yeah.
So immediately we connected and, you know, I felt, oh my goodness, this is interesting. So yeah, we're just, like you said, we're in a different season of our life.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because, you know, Eric and I had started a church in 2017 and I continued doing that church. And for some reason, our church ministered to widows and widowers. We had widows and widowers show up. And never did I think I would be one. But that's
well, not for a long time.
But that's where God has me just being right now. So obviously that's not only for my calling, but to help others in their call when they've reached that spot in that position. So, so sometimes just be is going to look different every day, but ask God and go back to the word, go back and read this Ephesians 4:1-6 and say, okay, God, today, what do you want me to just be? Just be at peace, just be humble, just be gentle, just be one with you today and push play on my Bible and have it read it to me. You know, I think that's what he really just being is a daily walk with him.
For a 2-letter word, there's a lot of power behind that. There's a lot of meaning. There's a lot of everything.
It is.
That little word.
It is. It is. It's so great. Well, that concludes this episode of The Dowagers with Sharon and Cynthia. And make sure and like us on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And did I get it all, Sharon?
And share with others. Share with others. That's
her name is Sharon, and my name is not, because she remembers the sharing part. Sharon shares. She's so good at that.
And I think we have seen the value in that real quick, just with other people that we have been talking to and how other widows that we've met have said, or even not even widows, just friends of mine have said, oh my God, I need to share this with so-and-so or so-and-so. So yes, share it. Please share it because it'll help others.
Yes. So thank you so much. And we'll see you guys next time on the next episode of The Dowagers. God bless.